The United States and Iran are showing no signs of movement towards a nuclear agreement despite several rounds of talks. The Biden administration says Iran is in violation of the 2015 nuclear deal and is calling on Tehran to stop enriching nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, Iran is criticizing sanctions put in place when President Trump withdrew from the agreement. Dan Hoffman is a former CIA station chief and Fox News contributor. He's here to weigh in. Dan, thank you. First of all, thank you for your service to our nation. Really do appreciate that, particularly on this 4th of July weekend. But I want to get your perspective on that and this Iran nuclear deal and what you're seeing is happening right now.
Thank you. Happy 4th of July to you and to all the viewers. Iran wants us to get back into that very flawed JCPOA deal, which even Democrats did not support. That's why it never became a treaty. Senator Chuck Schumer was vociferously against it because of the nuclear sunset clauses, because it never addressed Iran's ballistic missile program, as well as Iran's state sponsorship of terrorism. Iran wants us to eliminate all the sanctions, which eliminates the incentive for them to come back and negotiate. The Biden administration says they want to build on that nuclear deal with a quote-unquote longer and stronger deal that deals with the flaws of JCPOA. I just don't see that happening. I think that we are at a crossroads here, and there's no signs this deal is going to be made.
Yeah, what would be the incentive for the United States to get rid of the sanctions? Why would we even consider that?
Well, I think we do want to put a hold on Iran's nuclear program, and if Iran were willing to agree to a better deal without those sunset clauses, with inspections. But that's a very difficult thing to do. And remember that Iran has concealed elements of their nuclear program, some of which Israel uncovered, some of which we learned in 2009 that Iran had an enrichment facility at Fordo, which they never declared. So we're in a mistrust and verify kind of situation with Iran. And remember that two of the countries negotiating on our behalf right now for this new deal are China and Russia, two countries that really don't have our best interests at heart.
Now, Dan, I also want to get your impact or your perspective on what was going on the Syrian border, because rockets have been flying and, there have been some attacks, and I want to get your perspective on that.
So when the Trump administration launched that lethal strike against Iranian Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani, we established escalation dominance over Iran. And what we're seeing right now is that doesn't transfer to the new Biden administration. We're seeing Iran testing us by using their proxy militias to launch attacks on our troops in Dar ez-Zor in Syria. Iran wants us out of the region, and that's why they're doing this. And we've gone back now to being in a position where we really need to establish this escalation dominance. And the Biden administration responded with a proportional kinetic strike, which killed reportedly 4 proxy militia members. But at the same time, I don't think that this is the end. I think we're going to continue to see these tit-for-tat attacks again until we establish some sort of a dominant position in this relationship with Iran. And that has to happen concurrently with whatever diplomatic negotiations are taking place. If we're not strong against Iran, there will be no opportunity for diplomacy.
Yeah, and this is also one of the byproducts of a rising fuel prices. The more fuel costs, the more energy costs. Guess what? That money goes into the coffers there in Iran, and they're able to fuel some of these. But I want to move on, Dan. I want to really talk about China here for a moment, because one of the concerns we just expressed with the senator is that with so much debt, second only to Japan, China holds more than $1 trillion of U.S. debt. We lean on them to actually purchase our debt. What do you see are the implications of that? What is the impact in the United States?
Well, I think economists have been looking at this for a while, and I don't know that there's any concern that China would seek to weaponize the debt holdings. If they were to sell off U.S. dollars, then it would drop the value of the dollar and increase the value of their currency, making exports more difficult for China. But I just think the debt in and of itself is a great national security threat for us. We need some fiscal sanity in Washington. This massive national debt runs the risk of causing inflationary pressure, and it also constrains us diplomatically, militarily, all the things that we need to do with our budget, not to mention deal with whatever crisis we have to deal with at home, domestic crisis, infrastructure, and other things. the debt is constraining us massively, and we need to deal with that.
Yeah, the interest on the debt alone, we're spending about $1.5 billion per day. That's just an interest payment. We don't get anything for that other than paying off an interest where rates are near zero. But Dan, I got to shift again to another part of the world and talk a little bit about Afghanistan, because I know you've been deeply concerned about our withdrawal from Afghanistan, and particularly what's going on the Bagram Air Force Base, because as soon as we pull out, some bad things happen.
Yeah, it's already been looted, and it was such a key strategic location. I've been there, and it's a place from which we conducted a lot of aerial reconnaissance in Afghanistan and over in other parts of that region. Look, if there's one thing we learned from 9/11, it's that terrorists take advantage of ungoverned space to plot and plan attacks against us. And if we don't have a military capability, a finishing capability, and intelligence assets in place to detect and then preempt those threats, they will be visited on our shores. And I'm concerned that we're pulling out of Afghanistan precipitously. We're still planning on providing $4 billion in security assistance to the Afghan government without any oversight, without actually being there. I think that if we'd kept Bagram open with 2,500, 3,000 troops, we would have retained a counterterrorism capability that we still sorely need. The Taliban is not holding up to their side of the Doha Agreement by breaking with al-Qaeda. They're allowing al-Qaeda to homestead on their territory. And al-Qaeda and ISIS continue to present a threat to us in that region. So, listen, I've served in those places, and I can tell you that we were all honored to be there, especially on days like this. I served many times on a July 4th in a war zone, and we were honored to be there serving our country. And I think we need our folks out there on the front lines like never before. And it's a shame that, again, that we're, I think, repeating the same mistake the Obama administration made in 2011 when we removed our troops from Iraq, and we saw what happened there with the growth of ISIS and the caliphate.
Well, Dan, let me take this opportunity, particularly being July 4th, to thank all those men and women. It's a good segue. I know your heart goes out to those people who are overseas serving, but to the men, women, and also the families that are at home this 4th of July, I hope they know how much the American people love and care for them and appreciate their service, particularly when they're gone in a way on a great holiday and a celebration like Independence Day. Former CIA Station Chief Dan Hoffman, thank you.